old are you?
I'm 15.
Okay.
And my mom's car is here and it's on, and she's not home, and she was supposed to go to work today, and I can't find her.
Your mom is okay.
Imagine with me, a teenager just 15 years old, decided to get rid of his mother in the worst possible way. He began searching for a plan to end her life. But in the end, the police would discover he's not just an ordinary teenager. He's a cold-blooded killer. But why would he kill his mother? Today's story is about a teenager named Gregory Ramos. So, sit back in a quiet place and enjoy the tale. Let's begin. On July 4th, 1972, Jill Cliffinger was born in Barry, Florida. Jill was one of 6 children to very simple parents. Jill's life was chaotic, but despite that, she was very happy. She decided to rely on herself and lead her life. She began focusing more on art, taking drawing lessons, and was actually diligent in this hobby. After graduating from Merritt Island High School in 1990, she entered the University of Miami to study architecture. She excelled in this field and graduated with high grades, thus becoming ready to face the world. Although architecture was known to be a difficult field due to its high competition, she was lucky to find a job opportunity very quickly. Thus, her professional life began well. But this was in contrast to her personal life. She was married to a bad person who treated her very badly. Life with him was considered difficult, but with the help of her family and friends, she managed to overcome this and divorced after giving birth to a little boy, Gregory. Let's call him Greg. The mother began her life anew with her son, starting to navigate life alone with her son by her side, dealing with her wounds from the previous relationship. But this did not prevent her from getting involved again and marrying. She met Daniel Cliffinger, who is considered a very good person. Daniel was a father of 2, while Jill was the mother of the child we know. Although her life improved and became stable, Jill tried to be closer to her son and tried to spend more time with him because her son had been unsociable since childhood, preferring solitude. Greg was born in 2003 and was a lonely child. Jill tried to help him in this matter and involved him in the Boy Scouts and karate club so that he could mingle with other children and people and have more social relationships, to the extent that she also enrolled herself in the Boy Scouts club to be close to him. In 2018, the teenager Greg turned 15, where he managed to make friends. But he wasn't very popular among the students. He was an average kid in everything. If you pay close attention to these scenes, you'll find him introverted or trying to appear to be in sync with the other kids around him. So far, Greg prefers to spend time alone in his room and likes to play computer games, which is his favorite hobby. He continues playing until late at night. His teachers noticed that he was intelligent and capable of getting very high grades and excelling, but he's the one who doesn't try. As for his mother Jill, she knew this very well, and of course, this bothered her. This was the main problem between Jill and her son Greg. But like other children, Greg didn't like his mother monitoring him about this matter and hated being prevented from using the computer and playing games. Jill was strict about this. Greg began to focus on his studies, which reflected in his improved academic performance, but this improvement didn't last long. His performance began to decline again. On November 1st, 2018, was the perfect day for Jill to talk to her son, as her husband Daniel was traveling for a business trip, and their 2 children were with their mother. It was just the mother and her son, Greg, at home. Jill started arguing with her son because of his grades and low performance. The next day was a school day. Everything was fine until they received an emergency call from a teenager who was distraught and crying.
911, where's your emergency?
I just got home, and my house is completely trashed. It looks like someone broke in the side door.
Okay. How long have you been gone?
I've been gone all school day. I got home.
Are you there by yourself?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Okay.
And my mom's car is here and it's on, and she's not home, and she was supposed to go to work today, and I can't find her.
Your mom is okay. Your mom's car is there. Is there any other way she ever gets to work? Does she ever get a ride from anyone else?
It's on. The car is on. It's turned on.
The car is on, and you're sure she is not there?
I searched the entire place. I've been here for like 8 minutes. I didn't look. I can't find her.
Okay, I want you to stay on the phone with me. We are not going to disconnect until I have an officer that is with you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, did you see anyone leave the house?
No.
Okay. Stay on the phone with me. I'm making a couple of notes. Are you safe where you're at?
Yeah, there doesn't seem like there's anyone here. I checked the entire house because I was looking for her, but she's not here.
After Greg asked them for help, the police arrived. He was standing in front of the house, distraught and very tense. The responsible police officer approached him to talk to him and ask him questions while the rest of the police entered the house to search it. They found the house in a state of chaos. Everything was broken and scattered on the floor. It was clear to them that the house had been subjected to a major robbery. The door was broken, and Greg's speakers and computer were also stolen. Although Jill's car was outside the house, Jill was missing, and the police didn't know where she was. They started to worry, especially since the teenager Greg was distraught, very anxious and tense. They took him with them to try to calm him down since there was no one to take care of him. But Greg called someone named Ken who was present at the Boy Scouts and was responsible for him. Ken came to the police station, and the three of them, Greg, Ken, and the detective, sat down. The detective was questioning Greg about what happened, especially after the detectives noticed the marks on Greg's face, bruises all over his face under his eye, beside his nose, and on his chin, as if he had been in a fight. This raised suspicion for the detective who asked him about the reason for these bruises. Greg answered that it was because of a fight with a classmate at school, but the strange thing is that he didn't mention any details or even the name of his classmate to the extent that he tried to change the subject. But the detective continued to interrogate him calmly, observing all his movements, body language, and gestures. Greg took a defensive stance during the interrogation. The detective asked him how his day was yesterday, and he said he was out of the house all day and returned late around 8:45, and the night was very normal and quiet. So, the detective asked him about his relationship with his mother, how it was. Greg replied that there were some problems. The detective asked him if he had ever hit his mother, and Greg said it was impossible for him to hit his mother. He repeated it 3 times to try to convince them that he was not a violent person. But the detective didn't believe him, and after a full hour of interrogation, the situation began to change.
I already told you what happened.
Tell me you didn't kill your mother.
I didn't.
Who killed your mother?
I have zero clue.
Who took the shit out of your house?
Well, you just told me. Apparently it's my friends.
And when did they think they did that?
I have zero fucking clue.
Do you honestly believe the things that are coming out of your mouth?
Yeah?
So when your buddy says that you told him you killed your mother, he's lying.
Whatever. Alright, I'll tell you what happened. Alright, so I got home, I got in an argument with my mom, she slapped me across the face, she began to hit me, she started beating me, I didn't like it, so I strangled her to death. Alright? I put her in a wheelbarrow, I put her in my car, I took the car, I had a mental breakdown where I almost committed suicide 3 times, I drove around Daytona, I dropped the wheelbarrow in some random ass location, and I drove back to the church, I began to dig a hole. I dig a hole right under the fucking fire pit. I dug a pretty deep hole, deep enough to fit a body in. All right. All this time, my mom's decomposing body. I dragged it from my car to the fire pit. In which case, I tried to cut the wedding ring off her finger because I wanted to pawn it, but I couldn't because I didn't have a knife strong enough to cut bones. Oh well, whatever. Anyways, so I dug that hole, threw her body in there, filled it back in, made it look all nice and natural, dumped my clothes, and then I went home, and I caught a ride to school with my friends, and yeah.
And yeah. What about the part that you staged a crime scene?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Oh, so in the middle of the night I realized that, hey, my mom just up and disappears. That's not going to make any sense. So I decided to make it look like a botched robbery. So I just went to my house and I just threw shit everywhere. Which looked pretty convincing. And yeah.
The detective told him that his two friends, Brian and Dylan, confessed to everything. Greg confirmed that his situation had been exposed. After he killed his mother, he contacted his friends, Dylan and Brian, to help him cover up his crime. After the argument that occurred yesterday between the mother Jill and Greg about the study, the argument turned into a murder. As Greg couldn't hide the body, he took it in his truck and headed to the church. There, he chose a place nearby and started digging a grave in the ground to bury the body. After hiding his mother's body, he began to think of a way to dispel suspicions. He called his friends to take him to school, and on the way, he told them what he had done and asked for their help. They didn't finish their school day and returned home, starting to vandalize it and break the door lock to make it look like a robbery. Dylan and Brian took some belongings, including Greg's speakers and computer. After setting up the crime scene to match Greg's statements, Dylan and Brian left, and then Greg called the police. Since Greg had told the police that his friends had taken him to school the next day, it was necessary for the police to also investigate them. The investigators found Greg's computer and speakers at Dylan's, and after interrogating him, Dylan confessed to everything. As for Brian, he was completely opposite to Dylan. He stuck to a different story and refused to confess to anything. But when the investigators confronted him with his friend Dylan's confession, it became clear that everything was exposed. The investigators, along with Greg and his friends, then headed to the church to inspect the place where the body was buried. Greg began to describe the place to them and explained what happened in detail, speaking with mockery and contempt. After that, they were detained. On November 4th, even though they were under 15 years old and considered minors, they were tried as adults. As for Greg, he was tried on charges of first-degree murder and other charges such as concealing the crime and hiding evidence. To lessen his sentence, he confessed to the police and cooperated with them. In court, he also confessed to everything attributed to him. In the presence of his family members, Greg spoke with regret and apologized to them, admitting that he knows the immense damage he caused to his family and the world as a whole, and that he cannot fix what he has ruined. He ended his speech with an apology and requested forgiveness from his friends, also asking the judge to pardon them because they did not deserve imprisonment for a crime they did not commit, and because they were very cooperative during the investigation. Greg was sentenced to 45 years in prison, and although the possibility of parole is possible after 25 years, he will remain under supervision for the rest of his life. As for Dylan, he was not allowed to post bail because they were afraid he might attempt suicide or harm himself, so he was held for 309 days. Then his bail was set at $200,000, but his family couldn't afford the high bail. On February 8, 2021, Dylan completed 828 days of detention. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for second-degree murder for being an accomplice in Jill's murder. With deep remorse, Dylan asked Jill's family for forgiveness, and they forgave him, telling him that he chose the right path on the day he decided to confess everything and cooperate with the police. As for the second friend, Brian, his bail was set at $100,000, and unlike Dylan, Brian's family managed to pay the bail and release their son. Of course, Brian was released from prison until the trial after 3 years. During this time, he was able to continue his education, and his trial began in May 2021, where Brian's lawyer defended him by arguing that he was committed and able to continue his education without causing any problems, and that he played his part in the community as he should. However, the prosecutor had a different opinion, calling for Brian to be sentenced to 3 years in prison like his friend Dylan, and another 10 years for second-degree murder. On the contrary, Dylan was better than him. He decided to confess, while Brian remained clinging to Greg's story. Also, the victim Jill's family said they would not forgive Brian because he chose to remain silent and was not cooperative with the police from the beginning. Because of all this, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for second-degree murder. In the end, do you think Jill deserved what happened to her after all she did for her son, trying every possible way to make his life better? Share your views on this case and the verdict. And if you like this story, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notification, and hit the like button.